Callum, another Friday, another echoing room for me.
Yeah. What happened, Marcin? Where are you?
Yeah, I found some furniture for my home office and then opened a new office where there is no furniture again. So probably I'm not only developing and building software, but I'm building rooms.
Yes,
But I'm in
really.
my new office in my hometown with my people, and I'm so happy and so surprised how different things can be when you need to get out of the home after 15 years of remote work. So yeah, it's fun. What about you, Callum?
Awesome. Yeah,
How are you?
we do not have an office, but I've also had a nice busy week. No furniture, thankfully. But,
Yeah.
well, yeah,
But I started using some standing desks, so I'm starting to think about my health and my spine and things
are you
like that.
standing
So
currently?
yes, I'm standing at the
See,
moment.
so am I. I stand as well for probably half of my day, at the very least, because well, I found it's actually a nice way to keep me energetic. I get a bit like lethargic, tired when I'm sat in a chair on calls all day, and actually standing up like this means you can be a bit more expressive, and I quite enjoy it. So, it's your first standing desk?
Yes, it's my first standing desk. I did one from IKEA parts back in the days as a construction for under $100. I remember that, but then I was trying to stand all the time, which was hurting my feet and everything. And now when I use it for some talks, some meetings, and then I sit when I need to focus, that's a perfect balance, to be fair. But I can definitely review it after a couple of weeks, because right now it's been just a couple of days.
You can get these like padded mats that you can stand on, and they at least help spread the weight, but equally they're kind of like a bit wobbly, so you're not standing still.
Yeah, that's fun. But yeah, it's good to be back, and it's been yet another Umbraco week where we have a lot of things to mention and discuss. So we can probably start from a Skrift release from this week, and it has two articles, starting from the first from Niels Swinberger about conducting surveys from text messages using umbraco forms and Twilio Studio. So yet another case study. Interesting combination of these two tools.
Yeah, he teased this a few weeks ago, actually, showing like an SMS-based system on Twitter. It looks really powerful, and I didn't know that you could do a lot of this stuff with Twilio, which is excellent. He actually started working on this at the hackathon during the US summit, so back in September. He started the work on this, and yeah, it was pretty cool to see.
Yeah, but it's really great to see that he combines still Umbraco somewhere in between of that, right? So that's two passions at the same time. But
this
here
is really interesting. So
yes.
he's not DevRel. He's not a dev advocate or anything. His job is to build prototypes at Twilio with different technologies and maybe write up some documentation or write a blog post or something. You could say officially that is a kind of developer relations thing, but he's not in their developer relations division, and it means he can still, because where he started with Umbraco, so he can still do the things he enjoys and do his job. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it sounds like a perfect combination of the things. So you can still code and have fun and also educate everyone else. And I'm so glad to see this on our kind of channels as well, like Skrift, and not, let's say, somewhere internally. So that's good to be able to learn from it. And it's a really great article. And I knew that Twilio has superpowers, and it's used for this kind of stuff. But now it's interesting to see how it can be combined and how it can be also managed from the content perspective from the Umbraco part, which is more closer to our hearts. So yeah, that's the first one. And second is from Nurhag about upgrading Umbraco 7 and 8 to Umbraco 11. And still, I'm biased at the moment with this topic because I'm doing a lot of seminars and talks and discussions about exactly the same topic, and it's interesting to talk about it all the time, because there are so many ways, approaches, so many challenges.
Definitely. And we've been having these conversations with clients where upgrades are all possible, but like we've been tackling things in sort of different ways depending on the client, and in some cases we've said this isn't worth it. When we've analyzed the effort, like we're going to end up rewriting and rebuilding so much of this solution that it's just a kind of pull the plug, start again, see what we can save type thing. Maybe a content migration element, which I know Kevin and Usync has worked on, haven't they, with the Usync Migrate project recently.
Yes.
So there's plenty of
Yeah, if I were having time, I would definitely summarize what I also gather from my talk and the seminar that I'm currently doing in the multiple locations, because I divide it into 3 ways. One is a kind of upgrade path, second is migration path, and third is rebuild. And probably these are the only 3 ways that you can choose from. Of course, different approaches within every single route, but it all, as we all say, depends from some scenarios. And in this case, it's one of the approaches that Nurhak shared with us. And Nurhak was already sharing a lot of experiences, because back in the days, I asked on Twitter if there are people who approach the upgrade, and it was a while ago, so it was not that hot topic yet back then, but he mentioned a lot about his approaches. Cornet and other community members also shared their approaches. But in this article, he also listed and gathered a lot of useful resources on what has changed, for example, between the old versions. Why basically is also important to upgrade, and what this upgrade actually means. So that's a really useful resource, and I read it really carefully because it helped me also to fulfill some of the gaps of my understanding from the community perspective directly. So
he of course also did a talk at the Umbraco Community Day, which is up on YouTube. You can go,
yes.
For a kind of a talk version of this in 30 minutes. And I know he's going to be doing a slightly longer version of this at Umbraco Spark in a couple of weeks' time as well. So there's more opportunities to see more, ask more questions, etc.
Yeah. And also we mentioned this article from January too, when he described more in-depth.
That was only a month ago. Oh wow!
Yeah, and that's why when I saw this one, I said, "Oh, is it the same article that we were talking about?" But no, it's of course a different approach. But previously he showed a more in-depth technical steps to follow when it comes to upgrading, and yeah, it turns into the upgrade Bible somehow, and yeah, that's also something what I would dream about, to have some kind of algorithm. But I can just say I tried to do it when I was traveling last week. Try to write an algorithm, what we should do when you have a specific situation with your Umbraco project, and I completely failed. So it's impossible. It was so round up. It was coming back to the same step multiple times. I said, no, there's no algorithm for that.
You just have lots of scenarios with lots of arrows pointing to one big "it depends" in the middle.
Yeah. And that's why AI won't ever replace all of us. We still need to think outside of the box and outside of the scenarios. But definitely. That was really, really nice to find out. So yeah, that Skrift article, Skrift release, definitely worth checking out if you haven't seen this yet. Other than that, there was an interesting blog post from shared on Umbraco blog this week, written by Lasse, and this is a gathering of some telemetry data and statistics gathered by Umbraco itself from the telemetry of Umbraco platform. Callum, is there any statistic that surprised you from this?
So I think I made this point on Twitter. There's a disclaimer buried in this article that says, to be clear, this is only sites with telemetry enabled. Yes, so where we're saying 17% of all Umbraco sites or all new sites is a little bit of a liberty. It's not quite the case. I think I'd like to know the total data size actually of all of this. It would be quite interesting. Equally, the telemetry wasn't really enabled. I think it was in 8.10 that it came on properly. And there's been further evolution of that since with package stats, etc. But let's just say that in this window, 17% of all sites running on Linux in production, that does surprise me a lot, because I don't think we're running any production sites on Linux as it stands either currently, because all of our hosting setups have always been Windows, and that's probably just what we're stuck with. We could think about it, maybe, but I think at least in the Azure world, there's no real cost benefits of running on Linux, because Microsoft can competitive with Windows license.
Inside of app service especially, right?
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah,
we run Linux for the front end apps mainly, but always decide to stick with Windows based app services for Umbraco, because we also it's kind of maybe a legacy thinking in our heads that we used to having Umbraco be running better on Windows back in the day. So that might be with us, but probably a lot of new people who are joining Umbraco in general tries that to run on Linux, and this is why it might be from where it's coming from.
Yeah.
But also when I saw 17%, it was a lot in my eyes. So that's what surprised me. But if we can review the statistics after a while, maybe later during this year,
also just
really interesting.
17% in production. So this is I think Lasse clarified on Twitter. This is where the ASP.NET environment variable is set to be production mode. It's in production mode. So it's not any sites where you've set up custom environment configurations, none of that. It's literally environments where it's set to production. That's quite a big number. So it's not counting me running it on like my Mac, for example. I'm pretty impressed with that one. Block list. This is a big number. I thought it would be less, because we definitely have a number of sites still using nested content because they've been upgraded, or we've never done the migration, or there's a bit of more of a data a data migration effort there. But 50% of sites having an instance of the block editor in is great to see. Really great to see.
Yeah. And it also means that it will be easier to migrate over, upgrade in the future, especially that it was mentioned somewhere during this week as well that nested content is kind of going to be deprecated from the Umbraco soon. So that's why it's better to really stick with block list editor and then blocks in general and editor types content to stay there for longer. But it's a huge number indeed. This is about the sizes of the sites. I think this might be interesting also for people who analyze a lot of Umbraco websites. But also from my perspective, I know we've been talking about it, Callum, in the past about big sites on Umbraco, right? So this surprised me, to be fair. 64% of the websites have less than 100 content nodes.
That doesn't surprise me at all, because where we will spend 12 months building a large site or deploying a large site with maybe thousands of nodes, other agencies will build lots and lots of smaller sites, probably 10 times as many. So actually that sort of makes sense. Again, the key thing, this is in production. This isn't just in general.
So maybe they are still being in development, the big ones.
The other point I made is, again, think about how limited these stats actually are because of the versions that they apply to. If we say it's late version 8, okay, that's fair. But 9, 10, 11, I don't think either of those have really been around long enough, or I don't think there's enough of those sites around to say that for those versions, someone's launched a 100,000 node site on any version. I'm sure people have, I'm sure they exist, but there's not going to be the volume of those that there is for, say, version 8 or even version 7. We've still got some huge V7 sites knocking around that we're desperately trying to migrate.
But the statistics might also show that Umbraco wins in a lot of kind of comparisons that we were avoiding in the past, so with the small site builders or things like that, because it still can be easily used for the small websites, and it's still is used for a lot of small websites like this, because under 100 nodes it's considered as a small website indeed. So that's really good to see. But you know, the perception might be the key here, and if you work on bigger sites all the time, then you think, okay, that's a lot, right? So
one very interesting stat that I know people have banged this drum before, but 81% of sites don't have members, again, in that stats window. But I would say that's probably actually quite reflective of the rest of the ecosystem, from my knowledge of V7, V8 prior as well. I don't think membership should be in the core as like a baked in thing. Maybe make it a plugin or something. Maybe that's an argument for doing that, because then we can make a few more sweeping changes.
Yeah, that's true. And here the last stat which we can focus about is about Umbraco version. So it was said that Umbraco ASP.NET Core is now the preferred framework, of course. But from the stats from the telemetry data, 53% were coming from Umbraco 8 still. And 15 and 25 and 8% of the rest was Umbraco 9 and beyond. So
Usync being only on 24% of all sites in there surprises me. I would have said it would be more like 80%, at least in my opinion.
And 7% for Contentment.
Contentment. I think because Contentment's definitely lesser known still. People who are maybe on the fringes of the community maybe don't know so much about Contentment. I feel like Usync's been around so long that it's probably in most sites. If it's not Umbraco Forms or Deploy or on Cloud, you've got Usync in there somewhere. So yeah.
I did a talk back in the days about the kind of must-haves within the installation, and I think it also comes with the new projects now, right? So Contentment is a great fit for kind of newly started projects, and there is not so many of them yet finished. So maybe that's also another case in this, from my perspective at least, because we haven't released some projects which are using Contentment, and recently I reviewed one of the sites that was using it heavily on almost every kind of custom data source, custom property type, and it was amazingly implemented. So that's really nice to see that other people are using it, and there's a lot of traction towards Contentment approach, because we've been mentioning it multiple times. It really looks like a preferred way of doing things now, and when it comes to custom data sources.
Yeah.
So yeah,
these are in the chat here that maybe the smaller sites don't have Usync because you only have one environment, which I think is very possible too. Yeah,
exactly. So yeah, the link to the article and the statistics will be listed underneath our video. So check it out and share maybe your stats or your thoughts about this, if you are agreeing or not agreeing with the data gathered by the telemetry inside of Umbraco. And then if we can, maybe we should also try to convince us to enable this telemetry on some of our solutions.
Yeah. I don't think we've even reviewed any of that. We probably should. And I'd love to see more of this. Like I know it's probably never going to happen because it's kind of Umbraco's intellectual property, if you will, or private insight. But it would be lovely to be able to have like a big graph that you can play with and see that top 1% of sites. What are they using? What are they doing? It'd be very awesome.
Yeah, for all the data-driven people, data freaks would be a massive data source. So yeah, help gather this all. And yeah, Sebastian said that the telemetry was gathering in the last 2 years. So yeah, not older than V8 and not on V7 sites at all. So that's why we have not the full data set yet. Speaking about releases and numbers, then now 11.2 RC is released.
It's that time again.
Yeah, it's going to happen soon. I was not following too many of improvements, but we can see that there's for example, a huge new cache storage performance.
I would basically brand this release as the dependency release, because they've updated a bunch of dependencies and replaced this one with their own fork, which I know that Nikolai from I'm actually not sure where he's working now. I think Vertica in Denmark has been kind of researching this issue for a little while, helping out. It dates back all the way to the start of last year when it was first raised about file storage and writing on Linux being really slow. And so they're writing things like nucache. And so they've created a fork of this library, of this dependency. And I think Bjarke said they're going to look to replace the library completely at some point. Yes.
Yeah, I would say still the majority of the issues that I was exposed to with the recent Umbraco is either with somewhere around new cache in this caching layer, or because we've removed the issues with the load balancing recently in majority of the cases by offloading things to outside of the file system. But here it's still kind of small dependency in this file system, and it might be a source of the problem. So removing and reducing the stress on us would be definitely a great thing to see in the future releases. But a lot of, as you said, dependency updates, some new decimal data types added, and of course, plenty of more things. And I'm sure that after testing and after releasing it and after feedback from the community, there will be more of it. But yeah, it's happening. So 11.2 really soon. And as Umbraco is saying, also around the talks about upgrading, there's a lot of improvements that are going to be backported to version 10. So if some of this will be improving the core functionality of the CMS, I'm sure it will be also landing in the version 10, which is long-term support, etc. So that's amazing. So yeah, that's 11.2, and some package releases starting from Iconic. That is
11.
Yes, so that's a new icon picker package that has a new version, 5.2. And the other package to be mentioned this week is Limbo Textbox that got a patch release released this week with some Czech translations and nullable option added for the packages. That's from the package perspective. I don't know if there's anything else. Please do let us know if there's anything new that you're
working on. And I've realized now with the it's become harder and harder to find. It's become harder and harder to find.
I used to check this.
This is not recently released.
Yeah.
This is recently added.
Yes, exactly.
This is new packages that have actually been added onto the marketplace. It could be an existing package that's been there for a while and just gets added. So it would be good to have a not just recently added, but a recently updated feed in here. It would make our lives a hell of a lot easier as well. For finding them. I believe there's actually an issue on the issue tracker for the marketplace with someone, I think maybe even Warren, requesting that. But
but and definitely worth following the marketplace as a place where all of the updates, all of the new things are popping out, because there's plenty of updates and packages being done weekly. But these ones are the only ones to be mentioned, and of course. Check it out if you want to explore it. Some payment integration, some BigCommerce connectors. That looks really interesting. So yeah, that's from the package perspective and new releases. Events, that's something what we can talk about for a little longer now. Yeah. Starting from Code Garden and call for proposals and date ending for it today.
In 12 hours. 12 hours and 3 minutes time. So I will be submitting my talk in 12 hours and 3 minutes time. No, I try not to do the last minute. But you've got a few days left, a few hours left to submit your talks, of course. Last week's episode, we discussed why it's important to submit and what you might do to submit and how you might come up with an idea. And hopefully people can put that into practice. Go watch last week's episode if you need any help. Make the reviewers' lives really difficult by having lots of excellent
Yeah, and were there any talks announced this week? Let's quickly check.
There aren't. And funnily enough, if you click on every single person here except for Carla, they're all TBD. Carla's doing the opening, I guess, but everybody else's talks here are TBD, so we don't know.
Okay. Plenty of updates then to talk about later on. But I don't know if you remember, I submitted my talks almost on the day one when the call for proposal was open, and I withdrawn my one talk last week.
Right.
just to be able to submit something completely new that I feel like is more interesting today. And I wrote myself down today in the morning that I need to do it, and I really need to do it.
Yeah. Me too.
Final call.
I've had two talks that have been like ideas, work in progress, and I've come to write the abstracts for them. I'm like, I like this idea. I think it would be a fun talk to do, and I think it would be valuable and informative. But then I've got talks that I'm doing for other non-Umbraco conferences that I would argue I'm more excited about. And I was discussing this with my team yesterday. Like, I'd love to be able to submit those, but I don't think they'd ever get accepted because they're not they're not Umbraco focused. So I don't know. Plenty of options.
And one thing that is worth mentioning here, that during the call for proposal time and also the event forming process, the business side of the event was slightly moved away. So it's more like development centric, back again, as Code Garden used to be. Fun fact is that I turned more into business cases of using Umbraco.
So have I.
And then I said, holy cow, I want to submit this, and that, and then it doesn't fetch to any of this themes anymore, right? So
it's not to say that case stories and
case studies are
slightly less hardcore tech topics can be submitted. I'd love to see some stats maybe from the Code Garden team once the CFP closes of sort of what percentage were classed as technical, what percentage were classed as level 1, 2, 3, 4, who they were being pitched at. That would be really interesting to know for me as well as an organizer. But yeah, like it is a tough one. It's definitely a tough one. Because you may have noticed, you see it's branded as Code Garden Week now, because there's this business summit, which used to be the Gold Partner Summit, and it's now for specific types of partners. It's a bit more broad. That's on the Tuesday, and then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday is Code Garden, so it's more of a celebration week. But they've been quite clear that the main Code Garden conference is more targeted towards developers, creatives, etc., which would be a good thing. I think will be a good thing.
So it's more our picture here. Yeah, nice. a conference like no other. Definitely, this picture definitely fed the definition of it. Yeah, perfect. So yeah, definitely check out the updated content. Final call for submitting any ideas for talks. And yeah, let's hope that the committee and everyone who will be involved in choosing the best talks will choose the best talks for us all, and we'll all enjoy.
Blake shared a really interesting thing earlier this week, which is the Chat GPT. Tell me what I can think about at Code Garden. I can't think of any ideas. And you know what? There's not a single one on there that I wouldn't go and see that talk. So
exactly. That was something that I also was surprised of. And of course, I saw people, and I don't know if it was on Slack or somewhere, someone said, okay, this talk is looking amazing. But then Sebastian probably or someone suggested, ask ChatGPT to make it more friendly or something like that. And then boom, ChatGPT is making it more friendly. So I feel like the committee job this week, not this week, this time will be a little bit harder, because you need to detect ChatGPT. You need to detect ChatGPT. So I don't know if you've seen this meme where there's a Spider-Man taking the hat from another Spider-Man. It's another Spider-Man. So you need to detect the ChatGPT and really be creative when it comes to submitting talks, because they need to be interactive and interesting for sure for all of us. So that's Code Garden, and there's a lot of other events that are surrounding some of the conferences. We can mention the hackathon that comes to Bristol for the day before Umbraco Spark, and Steve mentioned this.
Yeah, Steve said that there's only 3 tickets left for Spark, so if you want a ticket, go buy it. Unless that was 30 minutes ago now, so they could have maybe someone's seen this Steve's comment and already secured the spot. Pull up the Umbraco Spark website, because there was a few announcements this week. They finally announced the full lineup of speakers, and it looks pretty good. So we've got Jake and Lasso going to talk about the new back office. Laura's going to talk about being compassionate and how you can work with open source in that regard. Rick, who also last week, and Amy are going to talk about decarbonizing the planet, which was a talk he said last week he was really excited about. So I'm excited for him. And Amy, of course. Lee talking about this Playmaker thing. I'm not quite sure what that is.
Dances with wolves. That's
see Lee dance with wolves.
Wolverhampton Football Club. Yeah, so that's interesting. And look,
there's a few more hiding on each page.
Yeah, Lottie
talking about packages. Alitza talking about the new Open API thing, headless functionality coming in V12. Paul Seal talking about how to get started with .NET command line. Carol on APIs. I'm doing my Umbraco Anywhere talk. Jason's doing a Playwright talk. And then there's a second track as well. Of all things, we've got
plenty of talks. What a lineup.
Amazing talks. Emma Garland doing some generative AI stuff. Ravi talking about tech. Mark and Jevon going to do a talk about kind of upgrading how you move sites over to new versions. Neil and Tom going to do a talk about, again, sustainability. It's an interesting one. It's come up twice. The eco side. Carl on GitHub Actions. Danny, Matt, and Sean talking about composable architectures, content, etc. Noah doing his upgrade talk. There's so much more. There's so much more.
Oh man,
so that's crazy. That wasn't enough to convince you to go and nab one of those last 3 tickets.
And I'm not surprised that Leon, the tickets went so fast, and it looks so good. I also won't be able to make it this year, unfortunately, but it looks so good, and I'm already partially feeling FOMO But I'm sure it will be a great event. And yeah, if anyone was still or is still considering going, speed up. We mentioned this decarbonizing talk, and it will be also discussed on the Manchester meetup on February 14th by Rick. So it would be a good occasion to test the talk and then practice it a little bit even more, and of course attend if you are around Manchester. And there are a couple other things, starting from also London.
We're doing a kind of virtual. We've said talks, but if we don't have any, then we'll just do more of a chat. But I've been contacting a few of the Spark speakers, asking if they'd like to come and either test out some material on a small friendly group, or just want to talk through some ideas. So we'll probably be doing that sort of thing. And I know Edinburgh the next week is kind of looking to maybe do the same thing. So. Without trying to steal all the content from Spark, at least giving people a small safe space where they can practice some things is a nice idea.
Yeah, and Callum, one thing was spotted during the week on your Twitter profile. Tell us more. Is it even related?
I'm not sure if I'm allowed. Might get in trouble. I think the tweet says everything it needs to say.
Of course.
I went to a big open warehouse earlier this week.
It's not any of the warehouses that were in use previously. It's a new one, or it's
no.
Okay.
It's not, and it's everything that went wrong in 2019 with that venue. It's fixed in this venue, basically.
Okay.
And still has the Craig saying nice shed. It's a lot more than a shed, Craig. If Marcin, open that picture just for context, just to show you how big this space actually is. The woman there is 5'8". So the roof is like 10 meters tall.
Nice.
That's
nice.
Yeah,
John said that there is a chance to roller skate there.
It's very industrial, as Steve says. Yes, it's incredibly industrial. It used to be an old joinery, like a wood joinery, so for timber. So they were building like rooms for houses and things. And I won't say much more. But what I will say is there will be a event this year. It will be in London. It will be at the start of November. There will be a hackathon the day before, in London, and workshops the day before. We're kind of trying to bring back that UK Fest true form that we had before, and the venue can take 400 people. So I'd like to be the biggest one we've ever done as well. And that's the goal.
That's nice.
Later in the year, and I won't promote anything whilst we've got other events being promoted.
Yeah, but that's a nice early start of not that early start, because usually when the festival ends.
This all started in October, and it's gonna take quite a while longer, but we'll get there. It takes well over a year to actually plan.
That's what I was going to say, that usually when the one event ends, the planning already starts for another one. So that's how it is. But it looks very very interesting, and yeah, we definitely, I'm sure that we'll be talking about it in the shorter periods of times towards the event itself. But yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, fingers crossed for making it the biggest one ever there. So that's all about the events. Two more things to discuss at the end of the episode, starting from Owen's blog post about using Umbraco migrations to create storage procedures, and that's an interesting one, because I must say that I haven't been using the stored procedures for a little while.
Well, there's an age-old debate, right, where you have should your logic belong in your database, as in your data storage logic? Should it belong in your database, or should that belong in your application? And I was talking to someone recently who previously worked for a large online gambling platform, the market leader in that area. And they told me that everything they did, all the logic was in the database. That's like the lowest level that they can possibly do it. So there's arguments for using stored procedures. There's equally, views and other things where there's efficiency gains by having those things there, and rather than executing queries over the wire every single time. So it's interesting. It's not something I've done recently much.
But also some of us, all of us, know some kind of database freaks or people who are so database centric that I used to work with one of the projects back in the past that were having a policy written that every kind of logic around the data needs to be in the database. So that's why I said that I have not that I'm not aware of these approaches, but I haven't been working this ways for a while. But it looks. It's still being used, so it's still doing its job. And here is the interesting concept on maintaining it and generally also extending it and changing over with the Umbraco migrations.
I quite like the idea. Again, Steve's saying it's hard to find where store procedures are. Another problem with them is how you
source control
them. And so I've seen people either put scripts for each store procedure in the database, in the repo, and source control that, but it relies on you actually making sure if you've gone onto the server and modified one that you've modified the script and updated the repo. At least here, they're being programmatically applied. So it will, verified in that way. It's definitely a divided camp, as we can probably see in the...
we can organize some pillow fights between the database-driven logic and then
the framework versus, whatever.
Yeah, so no, that's a really good one. So definitely worth checking if that's a new concept or maybe different concept for someone. And last thing is a Ukrainian language translation that is already added or is going to be
coming in 11.2. So it's in the RC.
Yes.
It's in the RC.
Yeah, that's nice. So nice collaboration, nice community work as well, and it's going to be there.
Yeah, and it's the thing. Firstly, fantastic that we've got Ukrainian language in there. I know there's a decent user base in Ukraine, but the thing I actually wanted to highlight in this is the fact that Mikola has added this because they are working with a Ukrainian government organization that wanted Ukrainian language support. Now, if we think back to when Welsh language support was also added to the CMS, I know Owen's here in the chat too. That was because, again, of a Welsh public sector, a government organization wanting to use the CMS and needing it to be available in Welsh. So there's a lot of good things that actually come from doing these projects. And it's an area that Umbraco fits in with really nicely because it's free or very affordable, easy to get started with. A lot of these organizations are already using the Microsoft stack, etc. So I think there's probably more organizations out there than we know using this, maybe not in their native language and would like it to be supported that way. So contribute it, and Nicola's done a great job there of doing that.
And I think this is a really nice topic because I'm working a lot with Nordic countries now, and and whenever I refer back to what is in UK, there's a lot of councils, a lot of government organizations that are using Umbraco as well. When there is a slowly getting there to Nordics that they're interested in using the same kind of shared platforms or approaches amongst their offices and organizations. So I think UK is far away when it comes to this one because it was already utilized, used, and established. When in some of the other areas of the world, maybe as well, it's getting there. And so I think we need more examples. We need more use cases of good utilization of Umbraco amongst the organizations like that, because I'm sure there are some great examples of it. And not to mention the European Council, right, and the big project done by the team out there with Umbraco, and I can't remember how many even websites out there that are using Umbraco. So and that's all what we've gathered for this week. I'm surprised, and I want to highlight it because almost through the whole episode there was a constant amount of people watching us live, which was around 30.
I've seen that Seb posted on Twitter that they've been doing a Discord watch party for umbraCoffee. I don't know what the practicalities of that is. Does it mean that every single person in our view counter is watching on Discord? If so, great. There's people still chatting in the chat. Can you use the YouTube chat in Discord, or are you all chatting about us separately and we don't know about it? Like I don't know the practicality of it, but it's very cool. Cool to see. Thanks.
We are still beginning YouTubers, so we will find out. But maybe whenever we'll hit 1,000 subscribers, we will know more because we will have more tools.
There. How far away are we? Let's have a look. We need to get another 133 subscribers. I feel like this year's our year, Marcin. We've said this before.
That might be this year. Yeah, huge year for us then. But help us, and if you have not, you are not subscribing us, please do. I made a really the same what I did in the Umbraco Together event. Recently on the seminar, I was walking and talking about my YouTube channel and our YouTube activity, and people said, "What was the name of it? umbraCoffee." Oh yeah, I was subscribed, so I got ourselves a couple subscribers last week. So yeah, small steps towards to our big goals and dreams. So yeah, we'll get there. So cool. Yeah, thank you everyone for being with us and being so active on the chat today. That's great. And as usual, we'll get some new set of news and discuss it with you on yet another umbraCoffee episode.
Cool.
So yeah, thanks everyone. Have a great and debate. Yeah, Tupper.
Still debating. But umbraco, other micro-OMs, whatever.
Yeah, that might be another idea for this maybe secret episode, Callum, that we were talking about. Who knows? But cool. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Callum, and enjoy the rest of your day. And see you next time, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.